Hello, my name is Alexa. Welcome to my YouTube channel. As you can tell by the title, today I'm going to be rating the books I've read in 2024 so far. So I have read 7 books so far in 3 months, so I think that's pretty good. I'll put what the books are right here so you can see what the 7 books are, and then I'll be going one by one through them and just talking about what I thought. So first book I read in 2024 is Rouge by Mona Awad, and this one I actually started in 2023 but finished it in January, and I have to say I did like it, but I thought it took a bit too long. It's not that big of a book, but I thought it took a bit too long to get to, I guess, the peak of the plot and like where all the action is. I just thought there was a lot of build up and lots of storytelling, which was good, but I didn't really like that part. And I guess for some context, I should probably tell you a bit about the book. But basically, it is about, I don't want to spoil anything, so that's why I'm looking at what the actual synopsis is. But basically, this girl is obsessed with beauty and skincare, and her mother passes away randomly, and so she goes to, I guess, to her mother's house to deal with the affairs, and she kind of gets sucked into this world of beauty that her mother was also obsessed with. So it's kind of like, I don't know, is it it's kind of psychological, kind of like mystery, I guess a bit of thriller. I guess you don't really know what's going on, but I thought it was pretty good. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I do think that it took a bit long to get there, and I have to say I didn't really like any of the characters that much. I didn't really feel that invested in the story, but I thought the plot itself was pretty interesting. So for that reason, I gave it a 4. Yeah, I guess those are my thoughts on that. The second book I read in 2024, I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. This book was my favorite book of the year so far. Honestly, this is one of the best books I think I've ever read in my life. I gave it a 5 out of 5 on my Goodreads. So this one, again, I don't want to spoil anything. That's why I'm looking at what the actual synopsis is. So basically it follows the protagonist, who's a young woman who's basically imprisoned with 39 other women in this almost like very large prison cell, I guess you could say. They get food, they get water, but they're not allowed to, like, they can talk to each other, but I mean, there's nothing really for them to do. They can't even like touch each other. Basically, these women all had lives before they were in this cage, before they were imprisoned, and they do remember things, but no one knows how they got there. There's no rhyme or reason as to why they're imprisoned. And then basically something changes. Oh, I don't want to spoil anything. Okay, basically it just follows the youngest girl who's imprisoned, and she doesn't know anything about her previous life. She can't remember because she was too young. And so it's really interesting to see this character navigate this situation, and there are some events that happen, and it's really interesting to see her perspective because she has no context about like what life is. And like, again, I who have never known men, she's never known a man. Like, she's never been in a relationship, she's never done anything that these other women have done. And I just have to say, I know from what I described, maybe it sounds boring, but I loved this. It was so good, it was so sad. It really made me think about, I don't know, just life. And I really thought about their situation, and it really was just like, it's terrifying, honestly. It's terrifying to think about what they go through and what happens to them, just because if you read it, you'll see. It was just so good. The protagonist was so good. I really liked the characters in the story. The plot was amazing. Just the writing was good. It's really not big. I flew through this one, and I think, it has a really good rating. Some people don't like it, but I think overwhelmingly people really like this book. It is very bleak, I would say. And I think a lot of things go unanswered, but I think that's what makes this book so good, is that it's realistic and it kind of mimics just life in general. Like in life, you're not going to get the answer to everything, and there's going to be a lot of unanswered questions, and that's too bad because that's what happens. Yeah, it was really, I guess it really humbles you. I don't know. I love this. I would recommend this book to anyone. I think it was so, so good. Favorite book of like ever, honestly. I loved it. Okay, moving on. Next up, I read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This book, surprisingly, I really, really liked it. I gave it a 4 to 5. I mean, you probably know what the premise of this is, but Frankenstein, he's the student that somehow wants, like, he creates another life. I mean, it's not really human. And I guess it's just about, it's about his experience after that and like kind of the events that ensue after he creates this monster, basically. I had no idea what this book was actually going to be about. Like, I knew, okay, this guy creates this like being, and that's all I knew. But surprisingly, it was a lot more thoughtful than I thought it was gonna be. And hearing, I guess, the perspective of the monster versus the perspective of Frankenstein was really good. It actually really made me think about things, and I thought it was really good. I have to say it was a bit of a harder read, although I think for a classic, it's a very easy read. I think this is one of the easier classics to read, but it was a bit dense. There was definitely a lot of description. The writing was very descriptive, but I actually thought it was very, very interesting, and I was pleasantly surprised. I think that a lot of people would like this book. Yeah, I would recommend it. I gave it a 4 to 5 because I really did like it. I just thought some parts kind of dragged on a bit, but to be honest, I don't have a big issue with that when I'm reading. So I really, really like this one. 4 to 5. So the next 4 books I don't actually physically own because I got them from the library. But the next book that I read was Bunny by, again, Mona Awad, the same author as the first book, Rouge. So this one I did not like at all, really, to be honest. I gave it a 2 out of 5. Again, it follows like a university student who basically becomes, kind of gets wrapped up into this friend group of these 4 girls that call themselves like Bunny, and they're kind of like cultish, like rich girls, and I guess it just follows that. I guess I would describe this book as a kind of psychological thriller, probably. I guess there's kind of a bit of fantasy or like magic because they do some like magical things. To be honest, I didn't really like the book. I know people love this book. I think it's a controversial one. People either love it or hate it, and I can understand why. I think the concept itself is pretty interesting, but I just found, again, the characters didn't really care about them that much. It was just like, I don't know, I didn't really like it. And I found that there was a plot, but there wasn't at the same time. And I just found it really, like, there was things going on, but there wasn't at the same time. And it's like, I didn't know, is this real? Is this fake? Like, I couldn't really tell what was actually happening, which I guess that's probably the point because it was a bit, I think, supposed to be a bit cult-like. I don't know. I just didn't really like it that much. So I definitely liked her other book, Rouge, more than this one, although the writing, I guess, had some similarities in terms of like kind of like weirdness and like you don't really know what's happening, because I have to say the first book, Rouge, also kind of had those elements, but I found it a lot more interesting and easier to get through than this one. So yeah, I don't know how much to say about that, but I didn't really like it that much. But that's just my personal opinion because I know some people really do like it a lot. So next book I read was Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. So this is a romance that follows 2 people that meet at a museum, one who works there and one who is like a PhD student, I believe. Because they all have their own issues, as people do, and I guess it just follows them and like their relationship. This one was, I don't really know. I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm not a big fan of romance books, or yeah, honestly, I don't really like love stories that much. I just find that they don't really have a plot. Like, the plot is the romance, which is fine because it's a romance book. I'm not faulting the book for that at all. I just find that the problems and the things that happen in romance books just annoy me personally, because I find that they're so avoidable and they're unnecessary. And I get in real life, people are complicated, people have issues. And sure, it's realistic in that sense. I just find that most of the problems that happen in these kinds of books are very avoidable and just unnecessary. And again, maybe it's because I can't relate to the characters that much. Maybe that's why. I just found that they weren't that relatable for me personally. And another issue that I have with romance books in general is I actually always find the characters kind of to be unrelatable, because I always find that it's always like, oh my god, this really beautiful girl, oh, but she's like so troubled, but oh my god, she's so beautiful, everyone thinks she's so beautiful. I don't know, to me that kind of makes me mad. I just think we need to stop having like stunning female characters that are like so beautiful. It's just not relatable at all. Like, I don't know if other people feel this way, but I always find that romance books are always like, everyone's always beautiful, everyone's always like perfect. And like, sure, the guy might not be beautiful. I mean, like, he's still pretty or handsome, I guess. But I find that the girl's always like, oh my god, she's drop dead gorgeous. Oh no, but she has like so many problems. But oh my god, she's so beautiful. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's always how I find romance books to be. And I just think it's not relatable at all. Like, I'm sorry, but the average human experience is not having people like fawn all over you and be obsessed with you and find you super attractive. I don't know. Maybe that's a personal problem I have with these kinds of books, but I don't know. It just annoys me because, again, it's just not relatable. So, yeah. I also kind of found the writing to be a bit pretentious. Um, Again, I did not think it was relatable. And I think a lot of people love this book and a lot of people hate it. I think that's a common theme. I don't hate it. I just think, I gave it a 3 out of 5. I just think, like, it was, for what it was fine. I just don't get why people were so obsessed with it and saying it was like their favorite book ever, because I just didn't find it to be that interesting to me. And I get, again, the characters had complicated issues. Again, though, I just didn't find that it was that, I don't know. Moving on. I have nothing else to say about this. I'm just going to end up repeating myself. Okay, next book I read, second last book, was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This book I really liked. I think it's a common opinion. I thought it was very interesting. So, this is just a contemporary book, and it follows this girl who is a writer, or at least wants to be, and she has a friend who's a very successful writer, and they went to school together. They were somewhat friends, but on the inside, the main character really kind of despised her because she had success while, like, the main character didn't. So basically what happens is that the successful writer passes away in some freak accident, and the main character steals one of her manuscripts that was in the works on it and publishes it. But it really deals with a lot of concepts of kind of like cultural appropriation, because the main character's white and the friend who she steals the book from is, I think, Chinese, if I'm remembering correctly. And again, the novel that she steals has to do with, it has to do, I forget what the novel is about, but it was basically like a warfront novel that dealt with, I think, Chinese characters, and the plot was about that. So it's interesting. The book was interesting because it was basically about how people reacted to a white person writing about those concepts. Like, and again, when she didn't really write it because it was her friend's book, which is a whole other issue, but it definitely had like dark humor, and I think it was pretty funny, and it kind of dealt with, topics like, cancel culture and things like that. I thought it was very on brand, very in keeping with, I guess, today's day and age. And what it really, really reminded me of was the movie I'm Not Okay, I think was the movie. I'm searching this up. No, is it I'm Not Okay? What was it? Not Okay. Okay. Not Okay, which kind of had a similar plot almost. Anyways, it really reminds me of that movie. So if you saw that movie and you liked it, or maybe it pissed you off, maybe you would also like this book. But again, I thought it was really well done. Super easy read. Read it in like a day. Yeah, if you want a very easy, interesting read, again, I don't think it was anything like, oh my god, this is the best book ever, but I think for what it was a good book. Yeah, nothing else to say about that, really. Okay, my last book that I've read in 2024 so far is The Lover by Marguerite Duras. So, this book, what to say? This book, basically what it's about is about this French girl who falls in love kind of with an older Chinese Vietnamese man, and it's basically the whole story is kind of about the relationship, but it's also about the main character's family, and it's kind of like a historical fiction, I would say. It's, according to the review, it's set in the backdrop of French colonial Vietnam. So this book, don't know how to feel about it. To be honest, I found the writing style was very interesting because it really jumped around a lot. It wasn't a linear path, if that makes sense. It was kind of like, okay, we're in this year or setting or period of this character's life, and then we would jump here and then we'd go back, and then so I found it a bit confusing, and there wasn't anything to orient yourself either. There was no dates or anything to kind of give you perspective about when things were happening. Yeah, I don't know how I felt about this one. I give it a 3 out of 5. I'm still not sure what I think. Honestly, I think this might need a reread because I kind of sped through it really quickly. I don't know if it's because I didn't like it that much. I don't know. It was one of those ones where I think it was also just a product of the times, the way that it was written, because this is kind of an older book. I really don't know what to say. I thought that it was good. I thought the plot was interesting, but again, it was one of those books where there wasn't really a plot. At the same time, again, it was just following the character's life. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I felt about this one. Again, the relationship was also really weird because I don't know how old the main character was, but she was like a teenager and he was older. So, and kind of weird, but I don't know if this was like about the author. No, maybe. No, I don't know. But I actually thought that the book did have some interesting themes, and I think it did make me think about some things. It was definitely pretty sad, like from a relationship perspective, kind of like a forbidden romance or like a complicated relationship, and just, it's like, was it gonna work out, was it not? I guess I won't say if that's a spoiler, but I guess it did make me think about things, and it kind of felt similar to I Who Have Never Known Men, in the sense that it's like these things happen in life and you can't control it, because there's definitely some sad parts in the books about things that happened to her family and to her, and I guess it, again, just really made you realize like that's what life is things happen and you can't control it. And I don't know, I think a lot of these books actually that I read this year kind of had a similar theme about, like, you know, at least a few of them, it was kind of like, you are going to live, you're going to die, and you can't really change that, and things happen and they're out of your control and you have to live with it, which is kind of bleak, kind of sad, kind of depressing, not gonna lie. I think that, yeah, again, I don't know, I think this one, again, you might like it, you might not, but it's a very, very small book, so I mean, I think everyone give it a whirl. I think no harm in trying. So yeah, I have just been rambling for 20 minutes. I hope that gave some sense, gave you maybe some books to add to your TBR. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. I've never really reviewed books or talked about books before like this, so maybe that sucked. I don't know. But I guess kind of next up on my TBR for 2024 is Dune, because I haven't seen the movies. I want to get into it. Everyone's talking about it, but It's really huge, and sci-fi is always hard to get into, I think, but I'm gonna give it a whirl and we'll see what happens. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope my thoughts were clear, but I feel like I'm not good at articulating my thoughts about things like books, but hope you enjoyed it anyways. And yeah, if you watched this far, thank you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.